All right. Welcome to another week and another conversation on the politics of this country. Today we are doing this from via the business we do, which is a consultancy where we actually advise people on communications, strategic communications. We do research. We basically help you get your message out there. And this is an office we have in Nairobi. But I want to stay within my context of conversations, where every week we look at the big stories and try and analyze them and try and learn from them. And I think you'll agree with me that the big story, the big political story last week is a pit stop that was called by the President William Ruto for his government, for senior members of his government. He had cabinet secretaries, he had PSs, I think he had a couple of, he had members of the Governors Council. I mean, I think I saw the chair, or I saw one. So some people from his party. And you know, for me, the interesting thing about these meetings that President Ruto does is that he's done them so very consistently. I was in Parliament for 5 years, between 2017 and 2022. And one of the interesting things, and one of the things we kept crying out for as members of Parliament within the Jubilee Party, was a forum through which we could have conversations with the leadership that was running the country. Because you see, we were the government party in Parliament. And a lot of the times, once you get into office and one part of your party is in the executive, the other party is in Parliament, there's always a point at which you stop being able to synchronize the things that you're doing. And I was one of the people who kept trying to push for forums where members of Parliament could meet with the party leadership, the presidency, the cabinet secretaries, the PSs, so we could synchronize and understand what we were doing and whether what we were doing is what we had said we were going to do. Because remember something about how politics works. When you're campaigning, you're running an entirely, purely political communications system. Should you win, you have to split yourself into the politics and government administration. Now, this is where a lot of people fail, and that is where you see a situation where a lot of times it becomes so much harder for a re-election for government than to get into office the first time. Of course, people say when you're campaigning, it's very easy to give all manner of promises, which when you get into office, you find that you might not be able to meet. But I think the problem is more fundamental. When you're campaigning, you're one synchronized animal. When you get into office, government becomes dysfunctional. And you have people pulling in different directions. You have members of Parliament fighting with cabinet secretaries. You have members of Parliament fighting with each other. You have confusion within government itself, where some CSs fight with other CSs. And sometimes that is what hampers government. And the public, Wanjiko, is very perceptive. They're always able to know when there is a problem within the ruling class, within the leadership, within the political leadership of their society, of their community. And this is why I find what President Ruto has been doing very interesting. When he got into office, a couple of months immediately after he set up his cabinet, he did a retreat in Terry for his CSs, PSs, and actually it was primarily his CSs at that time, if I'm not wrong. And he basically sold to them the whole idea of what he was trying to do. And because he had, I think he had put them in office for a bit, he got each of them to try and explain to them, to explain to him whether they understand what their role in government is and what the particular mandate that they were leading was supposed to do to achieve the plan that Kenya Kwanza sold to Kenyans when they were campaigning. It was interesting. I'll not get into the details of exactly what happened, but the fact that it happened was very interesting. So last week, there was this pit stop. Now, for anybody who understands, a pit stop is, in fact, in anybody who watches car racing, the pit stop is where a vehicle goes for prepare for urgent service, to just keep it running. You're running at 100%, and then you start noticing that maybe your wheels are not as tight, your steering maybe has lost a bit of alignment, and you want to do a quick, rapid response service to ensure that your vehicle goes back to 100%. That's what's called a pit stop. In fact, some pit stops, just watching, I'm one of the people who loves watching the team that operates on the pit stop, how quickly they change tires, how quickly they refuel, they brush up the car, they clean up the windscreen, they ensure that the car can walk in, can drive in and drive out in 20, 30 seconds, right? That's a pit stop. When you're running government, you don't move as fast as a racing car for sure. But to conceptualize the idea of a pit stop, and maybe I'm assuming this is something that the president is going to do every 12 months because he's done it just approximately a year since he actually put in place a cabinet. If he's able to do a pit stop every 12 months, by default, his car in his vehicle that he's running in government is going to move a lot more efficiently and a lot more effectively than if he wasn't doing stuff like this. So I just want specifically comment about that. I mean, the fact that as a team leader, you see the need to keep calling your teammates and having them sit with you. And they're your subordinates, yes, but having them sit with you, first you refresh the vision, then you get them to give you the challenges they're facing. Together you brainstorm, try and ensure every part of the 22 departments that run your government, because they're like the departments, whether we call them ministries, whatever we call them, they're like sections of the government are running in one direction. Why? Because when all is said and done, you're being judged. If a certain ministry fails, the blame is actually leads up to President Ruto. So that was amazing. But then he's gone even further. I was talking about the 5 years when I was in Parliament, and how in that term, I do not remember us doing a consultative parliamentary group meeting. President Ruto has been in office for 13, 14 months, 15 months now, and he's done close to 10 meetings with members of parliament where they come to State House, they sit, they do meetings, they have discussions. He explains to them his expectations of them in parliament, and in that forum, they tell him the challenges. The most recent one was where the members of parliament were telling him about how difficult it is, how unpopular government is becoming in parts of the country. And he told them something very interesting. He told them, we cannot be popular all the time. Now, that was an interesting statement coming from the leader of the party that in government, and a very astute and accomplished politician. Remember, at this moment in time, Ruto is most probably the most accomplished politician we have in government or in elective office today. He is serving his sixth term, elected, having served 3 terms as a member of parliament, 2 terms as the deputy president, and now he's serving the 6th term where he started his 1st term as president. So this is an accomplished politician. When he tells politicians that you can't be popular all the time, some politicians might be thinking, what are you talking about? But he's actually making sense. He's telling them, look, when you're running government, sometimes you're going to have to make hard decisions and pray and hope that the results are going to happen fast enough for you to recover any unpopularity that you have faced. Now, this kind of consultative meetings, which I understand he used to have even before he became president with his team of Kenya Kwanza, are interesting because they breed loyalty, they breed commitment, they breed trust. Because the team that you're working with, who you keep meeting, who you keep talking to, sometimes anybody who flags, anybody who loses faith, you're able to keep bringing them back. And you share your faith and your vision with your team consistently, and they keep going. When they get out to the ground and they face resistance, they face unpopularity, they're actually able to speak back and say, look, guys, I know this is not popular, but I know it's going to turn around. So this is good. And I personally want to actually see how this is going to pan out. But having that pit stop is consistent to the nature of the president that we're having right now. And it's an interesting part of the kind of politics that is being written, presidential politics being written, because this is very, very different. I think anybody will agree with me that the presidential politics we have seen in the past did not have this kind of consultation, didn't have this kind of team building, consistent team building, consistent team investment. And it will be interesting to see not just how the government performs, but how the members of parliament perform, how the cabinet secretaries perform, how the PSs perform. And you know what? One of the things it does, it ensures that if you fail, you don't have an excuse. There are very many platforms upon which you can consult, upon which you can get capacity, upon which you can ask for help. So if something happens and you fail to perform, you're not able to run away from the fact that that is a very, very personal failure. And also it means that when you fail, everybody knows why you are getting punished. If you get fired, everybody in the team understands. We have all been working, we've all been following everybody's performance, and yours has not been up to speed. So very interesting. I want to finish with an interesting observation I've made. When I was in Nyeri this week, I had a conversation with a couple of Vozeas, and they found it very interesting that somebody like me, who was a very strong proponent of Azimio, called me a general of Kieleweke, today tends to support the government, and they couldn't understand what I am talking about or what it is. I mean, they felt as if it's the usual political games that we play. And I told them, when I was supporting Azimio and I was pushing Azimio and I wanted us to vote Azimio, I did that because I believed that was a better option. But the greater majority of Kenyans decided something else. So the first thing is that as a Democrat, you must respect the decision made by the majority of Kenyans. Second thing, we must learn to know when a fight ends. There's no need to keep fighting a team or an individual just because you disagreed with them at some point and situations have changed. The situation that put us in a position where we were disagreeing with the people in leadership today have changed. Now I'm no longer a member of parliament in Jubilee protecting or defending my party leader Uhuru Kenyatta. That has changed. We are now in a totally new matrix with a President William Ruto, with a team Kenya Kwanza running government, and I'm out of parliament. So why would I continue fighting the way I used to fight? I would have to fight for new reasons, not for the old ones. And finally, it has never been my intention for Kenya to fail. The fact that the team I wanted to run Kenya is not running Kenya today doesn't mean that I want Kenya to fail. The new team that came against my proposals to Kenyans is now the team that is running the country. So once the decision is made, this team is running the country, I have to use everything I have to help this country, to help this team make sure this country succeeds. Because my intention is to ensure that Kenya succeeds every day that I am part of this country, whether I'm part of the leadership or not. And I remember those was saying, that's the kind of Kenyans we need to have. So I hope you're that kind of Kenyan. I hope you're out there and you're not fighting government or fighting opposition because of the last fight. That fight is finished. Let's look at how to make sure our country succeeds, and let's ensure that we put our best mind towards moving Kenya forward, not bringing it backwards. Glass half full or half empty, it's entirely up to you. You can decide to discuss how much water the glass doesn't have, or you can decide to discuss about what you're going to do with the water that the glass has. That choice is entirely up to you, but it determines the attitude of the kind of person you are, and it determines whether you are negative or positive influence to this country. So think about these things. I wish you a good week. See you next week, God willing. God bless you. God bless Kenya.